Okay, as part of this kitchen rehab, I'm replacing my old outdated posted form laminate countertops with some new high definition Wilsonart laminate countertops. And I'm going to be using a decorative edge that's going to look just like granite. So these are old posted form, there's the old one. And I'm going to replace it. Now I've already done the first one, so you can look at it here. See the bull nose? How realistic it looks? I even put a piece of granite on here to show it to you. It's still drying up, so I got it off the back. Look how realistic that looks. Okay? So the one I'm going to be doing is this one over here. Next, and this is the one I thought I'd videotape. Okay, so the first step is to measure your, well actually the first step is to decide what wood you're going to use as your substrate, okay? People use MDF, plywood, particle board. I'm going to use particle board. I believe it's better than MDF for water, and everything I read for humidity and stuff, it's even better than plywood. But you know, some people like plywood, it's a little bit more expensive. I'm going to use particle board. So my base cabinets are 24 inches, okay? So I want a 1 inch overhang, so I'm going to cut mine 25 inches. And it's going to also have the trim, so it's going to be a little bit more than 25 inches. But I also know my wall is not perfectly square, so I'm going to have to scribe it, so it's going to, it's going to take it back a little bit. So that'll be right for me. You also want to measure your sides, okay? And this is somewhat personal preference, but this side goes against the stove, okay? This stove is being replaced. We've already replaced it with the microwave, but I'll talk about that in a different video. So I'm making it just where it's enough. I want it like an 1/8 inch on each side of play, where I can move my stove in. On this side, I'm leaving a 1/2 inch overhang. Again, it's kind of personal preference, and then I'll have the trim, so it'll be a little longer. Now, what's kind of nice, the reason I'm showing this one, I think it's a good one to show, because it's kind of tricky. I'm using the bull nose, decorative edge on the front, and on this side, because it's going against the stove, I'm going to be using a flat piece of laminate. And you can see my laminate over here. It's the Wilsonart high definition. It's the Spring Carnival laminate. They come both in a mirage finish and a quarry finish. I got the more expensive mirage finish. So, I've actually already cut my particle board. So we're going to go outside and I'm going to show you how to glue it up. Okay, now I'm outside. This is the particle board. And I also cut these little, these are just 3 inch leftover parts of the particle board because we're going to build it up. So you just put these on the edges because you want it to be 1.5 inches thick. So you have 1.5 inches thick around the ends. And the whole thing will look built up, and that's where your laminate and stuff will go. Now I actually got to turn my compressor on to shoot this in, so it's going to get a little noisy here. So I may turn the camera off for a second or come right back. Noise. Alright, so we're going to glue each one of these sections up. Just put some glue on there. Like I say, it was just a straightforward, I cut everything to the right size. I actually went ahead and scribed the back, and I already did the scribe. I'm not going to show that. It's pretty straightforward. I'm sure you can look how to scribe a piece of wood countertop. So I'm going to use these little spring clamps to try to hold them. You actually move on quite a bit. I should clamp that down. Okay. And you've got to attach these somehow. Brad nails, staples, finish nails, screws, whatever you want to use. I'm going to use staples. Staple gun is not working very well. So I'm going to have to hammer these in. This is what happens when you do things live. I'm actually going to switch to finish nailer and put them in because I don't want to be wasting my time nailing these. So I'll be right back with my finish nailer. Okay, I got my finish nailer. Unlike those home and garden shows, I just do one take so you get to see when things don't work. Also, if you don't have a finish nailer, you could also use screws. Just make sure you use something shorter than 1/2 inch, so you can do 1/4. So I've already glued up the next section. Just going to put it on. And use a spring clamp to kind of hold it a little bit. And just get it as good as you can. You can't get it, because I can't get it perfect. We'll trim it off later to get it perfect. And the two sides. So that might be a little long. I might have to cut it again. Unless I got them switched. I just got them switched. And the reason one side is a little different than the other side is because, like I said, I scribed the wood to the back. Get a good fit. And there are these clamps here, kind of held in by the two pieces. By the way, you should use safety goggles. Normally I would wear my safety goggles, but when I video I don't unless it's something really dangerous, in which case I will wear my safety goggles. Okay, the next step is, it's hard to get these edges perfectly lined up, so clean them up. Some people will use a belt sander, but it's hard to keep a belt sander straight. So I'm going to use a straight edge and a router. I'm not going to show that now, but when I do the trim I'm going to be doing it the exact same way I'm going to trim the laminate, so I'll just show it when I do it then. Also, I need to go cut my laminate strip off to do the one by the stove. We're going to do that next. I'm not going to show you how to cut the laminate. It's pretty straightforward. I'm going to use a fine-tooth jigsaw and just set up on a piece of wood, and I'm just going to cut the laminate to cut a strip. So once I get the strip cut, I'll come right back and show you how to install it. Alright, I wasn't going to show how I cut the laminate because I thought it was straightforward, but the camera person thought maybe I should show it to the people, so I thought I would. It's a very tight area also to be working in. I'm just using a fine-tooth saw, and I'm just going to be cutting this right on the laminate. Now it may chip out a little bit, but I only need 1.5 inches, and I'm doubling the size, 3 inches. It's going to get trimmed off. So there we go. Now, it's probably a lot easier to use your table saw, but I'm actually out of town for this job, so I only have a small table saw. I don't have a big table saw. That's kind of why I'm jigsawing. So now we're going to take this outside and I'll show you how to glue it up. Okay, we're getting ready to apply the laminate strip we did earlier. And the reason we're applying this now, remember I oversized this, applying this now because this will go against the stove. So the top laminate will cover this up so you won't see the brown part, and the stove will cover the top part, okay? And we're using the original contact cement. Yes, it's the solvent-based smelly stuff. So if the odor bothers you, you can go to the water-based stuff. I'm not sure how good it is. I always use the solvent-based stuff. We're doing it outdoors, so also if you're not outdoors, do it in a well-ventilated area. The way contact cement works, you apply it to both surfaces. Oh, and because this is a porous end, I wanted to apply 2 coats. I've already applied 1 coat and let it dry. This is now my 2nd coat. So you apply the coat to both ends, and I'm only coating this 2 times. I'm not coating the laminate 2 times. And when it dries, it'll actually be dry to the touch, which is about 20 to 30 minutes. But when you put the 2 pieces together, it creates a bond. So we let that dry. Now I'm going to do this piece. Now we coat the laminate itself. This is another reason you have to overhang. You have to have this laminate piece bigger than what you're attaching it to, because when it touches contacts, you can't pull it back off and reapply it. So if you don't have it overhanged on all sides, you're going to have to basically destroy the piece and have to start over. And hopefully we can get this done before it gets dark. It dries. Okay, so I'm going to let this dry, and then when it gets dry, I'll come back and we'll attach it. Okay, as you notice, we've moved inside because it's gotten dark outside. I want to at least get the two pieces attached. Both pieces are dry. You touch it, it feels dry. I'm going to be trimming this so you don't want to get your oily hand everywhere. But the minute these two pieces touch each other, it creates a chemical bond, and they can't be separated, okay? So it's real important when you touch them together, everything's overhanging so you can trim it. If you don't, you kind of ruin your piece. So, I'm going to attach it. That's a very good take the time. Make sure I'm clearly overhanging everywhere before I attach it. And that's why I made my piece extra big. You got lots of overhang on all sides. You want to use a J-roller. It's really good, okay? Now, I'm going to push a little bit more in, go to videotape all that, but after that, I'm going to trim it, but I'll do that tomorrow when it's light outside, okay? So you just, like I said, just use your J-roller, just be careful, don't push real hard here. Look where it ends. Put a lot of pressure, it's working back and forth, just like that. Get that thing good and attached. Alright, I'll be back tomorrow to finish up. Okay, back on my laminate countertop. This was the edge, remember, that goes by the stove. And now we're going to route it off. And to do that, I'm going to be using a flush trim router, and a flush trim bit. Flush trim bit is basically just a straight bit with a bearing, and the bearing will ride along the wood. One thing to always keep in mind, people ask me, is which direction to turn, the router to go in. This blade turns clockwise, so you want to go counterclockwise against the blade, because if you go with the blade, it can actually catch and kick your router. Now this is a very thin material, and this is a very small 1/4-inch router bit. It probably doesn't make a difference, but believe me, if you go through thick wood with like a 1/2-inch bit, it can jar you quite hard. Sometimes I bypass wearing my goggles during the videos, even though I tell you to wear them. In this case I am, because it really does throw out a lot of bits. We'll bypass the mask, but I recommend doing the mask too. So it gets you nice and flush. And like I say, the top part's gonna come over and it'll cover up this little line. All right, so now I'm gonna clean this up. I'm gonna use a contact cement, be outside, or definitely we're actually use a heavy duty mask if I'm inside. We want it well ventilated because it is smelly. Just like I did before, I'm not gonna show it because it's the same as I did before. So I'm gonna apply with a brush and it's gonna take 30 minutes to dry. I'm gonna apply with a roller instead of a brush, so I'll be applying it here and I'll apply it there. And then after the 30 minutes is dried, I will come back and show you how to make the two surfaces. Okay, the contact cement's been applied to both sides, the particle board and the laminate. And even though it feels dry to the touch, a little tacky, when you bond these together, it'll stick hard. So you got to make sure this board does not touch that before you're ready to set it. So you want to use some dowels or sticks. Actually, I think you'll get more. I'll be right back. Okay, I got some more dowels. You can't have too many. This is probably a little overkill, but you don't want these two to touch together until you're ready to place it. Jerk right there. A little windy today, that doesn't help. So you set that on the dowels. This is on the dowels. Dowels. Okay. You want to make sure you're overhanging on all sides. This is really critical. Okay, so it's overhanging there. It's overhanging here. It's overhanging here. Can't check it enough times. I'm going to go here, check it. But this stuff's contact. There's no pulling it back off, you know, like contact paper. Okay, so you move the first down. Okay. Try pressing the center to get any bubbles out. Push it towards the end. That's what I do. Pushing it out the end. Get rid of any bubbles. Pressing the center. Pushing it back out. Back out. Okay, now this is where you want to use a J roller. Okay, now because this is oversized, you gotta be real careful because if you go too hard over, you get bend this. So I try to like find my ends, and at first I'm just gonna be real careful and not go anywhere near the ends. Just to get started, set in pretty good. Like I said, if you go over here, you could break it. And that would be bad. Okay, so what I'm going to do is now I'm going to take my trim router, go get my trim router, just like I did before. I'm going to trim it out, and then once it's trimmed out, I'll really finish it with the J roller. All right? Now we've flush trimmed it. You can see it's pretty trimmed around it. I still got some parts that got messed a little bit. I'll come back and clean that up in a second. A lot of times this is all people do, and they'll flush trim it and then they'll sand it. If I was just doing, you know, these kind of edges, like I did over here by the stove, that would probably be okay. But because I'm putting the decorative edge, and we want these edges to be really clean, remember this bit rides on the wood. And there can be little waves in this wood. And some people try to clean up with a belt sander, but I called Wilsonart, and they recommend actually using a straight level and then using a router to clean it up, and that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go get that, and I'll show you how to do a final clean on this. Okay, we've ran the flush trim router around it. Like I said, that can leave some waves if the wood's a little wavy. I've already used a straight edge cutter to cut this side, the front. Now I'm going to do this side. So to do this, I'm using a very straight edge, so there'll be no waves. And I'm using a large router with a straight bit. And I will be wearing my mask and goggles for this one. Okay, you want to be extremely careful when you use that big bit like that. But now I have a very straight edge with no waves in it, perfectly for that decorative bullnose. Now, if you've done your cuts right, you should be square. I checked my square before I did that last cut, so I know I'm square. And I did a very accurate measurement just to cut off with this. I just cut off a 1/16 of an inch. You'll have to figure out what your router is, but I just cut off a 1/16 of an inch. If you're not square, just a little bit off, you can use a protractor to figure out your angle. Okay, so you want your angle to be really good on that corner. And mine's 90, so it'll be 45 degrees. And don't just take your miter saw's word on it for 45 degrees. Get a speed square, you know, check the saw up and down, and check at the angle to make sure you're 45 degrees on your miter saw. All right, so I'm gonna go cut my wood, and I might move this to the inside to glue it up, and then I'll show you how we install it with the new, how we glue on the decorative bullnose finish. Okay, we're at the last phase and probably the most important phase, and that's adding this decorative bullnose corner, bullnose end treatment on. This is what's going to make your countertops look like granite, so you got to do this right. Now I've already glued this one up, and I'm going to show you how to do this one. Some people ask me why I don't videotape everything. Well, one reason is the person holding the camera actually is my helper, so I actually use them to help me. So I'm going to put this on. So one thing I'm using these spring clamps, and you know the spring clamp goes over the edge a little bit. That's just to keep it even with the top. Okay? That's why they're there. And also, if you don't have a helper, it helps hold it up. So I'm just using regular wood glue. I don't use contact sealant. I'm using Talbond 3. extremely good glue. My tendency is always to over put on glue, which so you probably put less than I do. As you can tell, we're already gonna have some problems if it's gotten too thick. And just kind of hold it in. Now, I've already made up my tape pieces. So you want to really check on these ends. You want to make sure it's critical. You want to make sure it hits really good. And one thing I just found out is you go from the bottom, sometimes it pushes it up a little bit and then you end up with a raised edge. So you want to make sure your edges don't get raised. And I push this back hard. I think it works better if you start from the top. You want to push that really back hard, right there. For it doesn't see, you won't see any. And also fill it to make sure it's even with the top. You don't want it to be sticking out. Pretty obvious, but there's a 45 on that side. It's a straight cut over here where it hits the wall. You can leave a little extra. And I've already scribed my wall, but if you hadn't scribed your wall, scribe it afterwards. Then leave a little extra if you can, use a belt sander or however you're gonna sand it down to the wall. But I already did that. Okay, so I'm gonna let that dry up so you can see how it's gonna look. Here's a piece I'm in the process of doing. Here's another piece we've already glued up. That's the one that holds the sink. And here's a piece we've already finalized. It's already set up and glued. And I think I should do this yesterday, but here's a piece of granite. You can see it looks just like granite. So, I'm doing another video on how I'm rehabbing this entire kitchen. So, if you want, you can, I'll put a link to that video so you can see the final product with the sink and everything in with all the countertops done. Alright, if you have any questions, just post them in the comments below.